I bought a lottery ticket. The prize? Pushing the plunger to dynamite the smokestacks rising above Kellogg, Idaho on Memorial Day weekend in 1996. I didn't win, but my husband and I traveled from Seattle to watch the demolition of the tallest symbols of the mining industry in the town where I grew up. Kellogg was once notorious for its brothels and gambling, and famous for its lead and silver mine. Now it was noticed again for the extent and cost of its cleanup. "Toxic town to blow its stack," reported the Seattle Times. The Wall Street Journal devoted a whole column to the event. The Christian Science Monitor presented a history of the town, the mines, and the extent of the environmental destruction caused by lead and arsenic emissions from the smelter, and the devastation of forests and rivers during 90-plus years of mining. Kellogg and the people who lived there had raised me. I felt as if this event marked the destruction of some part of me that I could never recover. Who knew if the town would recover? I could point out sights and talk like a tourist guide, laughing about the smallness and apparent meanness of this little town in the Idaho Panhandle. Inside, I was sad, about to bid farewell to a friend. An hour before the scheduled destruction, we found a parking place near the outskirts of town across the valley from where the smelter once dominated the landscape. We slipped in amidst hundreds of cars, some with license plates from the local county, but most from out of state, like us. Around the corner and up a gulch, the high school I attended still opened its doors for students. We decided to climb the hillside above the former Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant, now an Alpine drive-in, to get a good view. Dozens of people carrying cameras and binoculars climbed with us on the spring morning that reminded me of all the overcast days when the smelter smoke blocked out the sun. While waiting for the show, I listened to snippets of conversation. "What a waste," one man said to another. Both were dressed in blue jeans and flannel shirts, and both sported beards, mostly gray. If the mines had been operating, I would have identified them as miners. "We hadn't ought to let the government do this. That big one there is only 20 years old," his friend said. "Stupidest thing I ever heard of." If these men were former miners, 20 years would seem brief to them. Many of my friends' fathers spent their lives working for the Bunker Hill Mining Company. I had graduated from Kellogg High School in 1961. A number of my classmates went from school to work for the Bunker Hill Mining Company. The Bunker, as we called it, or Uncle Bunker, as the workers often called it. Others left for college but returned to employment in the office building, chemical labs, assay offices. Where were they now? At our first all-school reunion held in 1986, it still seemed possible to townspeople that just maybe the mine might reopen. When the tunnels flooded in the early 1990s, that hope died forever. Those who lived in the valley could be identified by what they were saying. "It's the last smelter in the country. We'll be defenseless in another war. Where will the lead come for bullets?" A gray-haired woman asked her husband. He just shook his head. "It's the end of an era," I heard. "Now we'll just be like all other small towns. Nothing unique. No symbols." And a few bets were thrown out. "I bet they don't fall the way they're supposed to." "I bet they got to do the yards all over again after this." Each house in town was having its yard dug up and replaced with clean dirt. The football field had already been replaced. "I bet in 10 years they have to build 'em again." The Environmental Protection Agency had declared the entire valley and surrounding area a Superfund cleanup site. The agency imposed a plan to clean up the poisons from the mining operations, and the dismantling of the buildings and destruction of the smokestacks were part of it, as well as the new dirt for yards. Without the pressure of heat and steam going up the stacks, there was the possibility they would collapse and pollute the whole town site and beyond with the arsenic, lead, and other toxic materials laminating their insides. "How much is this costing?" someone asked. "Superfund site, my ass. I've lived here all my life and I'm not full of lead poisoning."